Hey guys, before we get started, this episode is brought to you by Drunken Gentlemen, the drinking club with killer teas, and their newest drop, The Drunkest Place on Earth. And if you're a big Disney fan like I am, this tea is perfect for park hopping with a buzz. First timers get 20% off with the code WELCOME, but my taproom listeners, you guys get 25% off. Just use the promo code TAPROOMPODCAST at checkout and stay classy and never spill. And now, on to the episode. All right, and we're back. This is episode 117 of the Taproom Podcast, and I'm your host, Mike. Oh, man, it is Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Happy Mother's Day to my mom, and also my stepmom as well. We got to be grateful for our mamas, right? They carried us, took care of us, and all that good stuff. I wish I could spend some time with my mom on Mother's Day, or at least wish I could see her every Mother's Day. But she's out in Kansas, and there's busy with work, and she's busy and stuff like that. But just know I'm thinking about you. I don't know if anybody familiar with the city of Pico Rivera. Obviously, when I talked to Lulu and Zeke a few weeks ago, they are from Pico, and I'll be in Pico later on today. But my mom back in the day was actually Miss Pico Rivera in 1981. So she was kind of a big deal. But yeah, big shout out to all the moms out there. This episode is with Adam Mills, also on Instagram known as Adam_makes_beer. But yeah, he helps, the guy honestly does it all. He was a brewer, he's on the technical side. He does career development stuff. He's a podcaster, he's a YouTuber, but he just loves the industry, and he's been working his ass off to get where he is. So Adam, just want to say thank you, man. Thank you for being on the show. Looking forward to everybody listening to be able to hear your story and just about, your journey and stuff like that. And I'm just really grateful that you were willing to come on the show. On some more sad news, and Wirt Wrangler, and just he has Antonio Sanchez. He's been on the show. Super grateful for being on there, but he's going through a battle right now with lupus, and he does have a GoFundMe. It is in there, if you go to Wirt Wrangler on Instagram. You can go check that out and donate. I think they're trying to get to 20,000. I think the last time I saw they're around almost 12. So man, it's just sad, man. And Antonio, what you've done for the industry, man, can't be stated in words. So just wanted to say thank you. I hope you get better soon, bro. Like I said, I know things are tight right now. Money's tight, but I mean, if you can donate or help out at all, that would be fantastic. Yeah, so we're praying for you, Antonio. Cheers, brother. Let's see what else we got. The NHL playoffs are going on right now. My Avalanche broke my heart. They lost, but it's just a game. It is what it is. It just, man, what I was thinking about, there was three games in that series where they took the lead into the third period and lost. Brutal stuff. But let's go around the series, see where we're at. Edmonton's up 2-1 in the series against Vegas. The Hurricanes are up 2-1 against the Caps in that series. And then across the other side, we have the Jets and the Stars. The series is tied at 1. That series is going to be crazy good. I'm looking forward to watching that game today. Then we got the Leafs and the Panthers. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised Toronto's up 2-1, but good for Toronto. I mean, we'll see how it all goes, but I'm kind of hoping Toronto moves on. That'd be pretty sweet. But yeah, I just love playoff hockey. There's nothing like it. It's just insane. All right. What else we got? This is going to be a quick intro. I guess, Derek Carr retired from the NFL. I was like Derek Carr, man. It just he just couldn't stay healthy. It just sucks, man. Because there was a couple of years out there, when he was before he got hurt. I think it was before he broke his leg. He was just actually looking really good, and the Raiders actually looked really good that year, surprisingly. But yeah, so I mean, sometimes people don't know when to hang it up, but I mean, kudos to Derek Carr for doing that. Let's see what else we got. Like I said, this is going to be a quick intro. Oh, I have a new website for merch. So if you go to taproompodcast.dashery.com, and then Dashery is DASHERY.com. That's the new site I'm using to send out my merch. It honestly makes it so much easier, and it's a lot easier to navigate, thankfully. But yeah, it's taproompodcast.dashery.com. But you can also just go to my Instagram, and the link is in the bio. I just released a Galaxy Not So Far Away t-shirt. So I have that. I also have the Find Your Beer. There are new baseball tees on there. Before, it was kind of tough to find like the crew necks or the sweaters, but now on the left-hand side, if you click on the little shop button, it'll give you if you click on apparel, it'll give you all the options you have there. So I'm just glad I'm using a different site now. And I do get a better percentage now as well. So that's good. Let's see what else we got. New Taproom Tales coming this week. We're going to do a blooper / like outtakes kind of episode. So that should be fun. And also, we kind of announced yesterday we're doing it. We are making a Taproom Tales t-shirt. And it's not going to be available on the website. It's only going to be available at Level Up. So if you want one, you got to go there. It is I want to say we should have them in about, like, we want to try to time it for next month sometime, but we will keep you posted. Me and Luis are going to shoot like 3 or 4 episodes on one day this week, I think Thursday. So that should be pretty good. All right. Well, I'm going to shut up now. I had a bunch of crap I got to do. And yeah, so we'll jump into the interview. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's with Adam Mills. Adam makes beer, or Adam_makes_beer on Instagram. Thank you again, man. Hope you guys enjoy. Cheers. All right, guys, we're back in the tap room, and I'm your host, Mike. And I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Adam Mills. He's a pro brewer, content creator, YouTube, social media extraordinaire. What's going on, man?
Oh, not much. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course, man. Thank you for coming on. I know I've been delaying it a little bit because I've been so busy with stuff, but I'm glad I finally get to sit down and have this conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, we just jump right into it. I mean, because you are from Cincinnati, right? We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
Tell me how it all got started for you, man.
Yeah, so it actually started for me back in Michigan. So the first 10 years of my professional career, I taught high school with at-risk kids. And in the meantime, I had started home brewing and getting really involved in the beer judging and competition side of things. And so through some successes that I had on the home brewing side, that put me on the short list for brewers for a new brewery that was opening in the town that I was living in.
Okay.
So I did another 10 years in Michigan working on the pro brewing side at a handful of different breweries. And then in October of 2020, we moved down here to help start Cartridge Brewing, which is near Mason, Kings Island, if anybody is familiar with the Cincinnati area at all. And yeah, from there I went to Sonder, and now I'm doing content creation full time. The big focus of what I'm doing is pro side, and there's always overlap between homebrew and pro brewing, but I definitely approach it through a career lens and with a pro side lens, but kind of merging those two things of, my past as a teacher, and then kind of trying to help folks out on the pro side, because there's not a ton of pro side brewing stuff on YouTube. And so, yeah, I started dipping into that, and we're going full time with it right now. So
that's awesome. And how's that going for you?
It's a lot of fun. What I love about it is I do get to do a little bit of traveling. I'm doing some consultation work now, and it might be a little different than some of the other consult services that you'll see on our side of the business, where I'm not the guy that you want to call in if you are planning an expansion or, going to be working with the general contractor. I'm somebody that can come in and help train you, work with you on your equipment in your brewery to sharpen up your SOPs, your standard operating procedures when it comes to quality and safety. And so I love doing that because there is still that teacher in me for sure.
Mhm.
So I love getting into other people's spaces, seeing the unique issues that every place has and how to work those things out. Most recently, I just did a video with Rheingeist where this wasn't a consultation thing, but I go in and I pair up with area breweries and breweries outside of my area and kind of do just behind the scenes tours of what they have going on. And what I was able to do is they were doing 8 turns. They're brewing Truth, their IPA, 8 times that day. And it's a big production house. It's a big production house. So They were turning that beer 8 times. And then so I got to be up there with the guys on the brew deck talking about what it's like working with an automated brew house, but then really a tour through the whole place, watching that beer kind of from beginning to end. It's cool for me to see it because I'm just a nerd about what we do as brewers, but also I love being able to share that with other people. Because I do think there's value to, even if you're a pub-sized brewer, so a smaller brewer that's never going to get into a larger production space, it's still cool to be able to see those things, and there's still little things that you can pick up from that. So I find myself in this really interesting place now where I'm getting access to different places, which really scratches an itch for me. I like to see different brew houses, different equipment, different processes. So yeah, I enjoy it quite a bit.
That's awesome, man. And I mean, and I'm sure it kind of like leads to like even potentially like interviews and stuff for your show and all that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, I do have a podcast as well. And so all that stuff will originally be streamed on YouTube, but then it goes to the podcast services. And so I do a monthly live stream Q&A where I take questions from other pro brewers and home brewers on technical topics. And sometimes we do dip into kind of leadership and career development stuff, because I think that's something that's really important for us as folks in the industry to also have kind of that lens on it too. And then weekly, I have an industry pro podcast where I bring usually a brewer, a researcher, a lab side person, and we talk about something that they're knowledgeable and passionate about. So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I mean, and bringing, like both sides together. And obviously, like, I mean, just being able to talk to people in the industry, I feel like it's the best industry in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Most of people like want to, just help one another and stuff like that. So it's great.
Certainly. Yeah, it's definitely a supportive industry. And, the nice thing about it is I love being able to connect with people who are just excited about what they're doing and they want to share it. Because for me, when I was coming up on the homebrewing side, I was really fortunate because I started listening to a podcast that was new at that time. It was called The Brewing Network, and they had a ton of killer content with really amazing homebrewers and some of the biggest pro brewers out there. They had some killer interviews, and people were just sharing what they knew, right? Because, the idea is that that's where your knowledge came from on some level, right? What people have shared with you. Some of it is your own trial and error, right? But I mean, the bedrock for the super majority of us, I think, is, people helping us, giving us, training us, mentoring us with that information. So I love having conversations with people that like to engage in that because it's exciting. I just interviewed Jessica Young yesterday. She does a lot of really interesting hop research. She's wrapping up a PhD at UC Davis, their brewing program.
Nice.
So it's just fun. It's cool. It's great to be able to connect with those folks and dig deep into stuff that I love talking about.
Oh, it's great, man. And that's one of I want to know one of the things I want to ask you too, like your favorite part of like either content creation or just podcasting in general. Like, I mean, you get to like have these conversations or find out these little tidbits or little, stories that you might not have known before.
Yeah. I will say one thing that surprised me is, I'm very extroverted, and, I taught for 10 years in a relatively I don't think any high school age kid really wants to be listening to me talk about history, but maybe especially the population of kids that I was working with, because it was a little bit of a concentration of people that had not been successful in traditional schools. And so, I figured, okay, I'm going to start podcasting. I'm not going to be nervous. I'm talking about some things that I know about. I'm used to talking in front. It's a skill set. And I'm sure you've seen that, how you've developed as you do your thing, right? So
yeah,
just getting into it, it is its own, it is its own skill set. That is something that I didn't quite see coming with it. But I'm also realizing I'm not answering your question. I went in a slightly different direction.
That's
what was
okay.
your question?
Oh no, just like I was gonna ask, like, what your favorite part of like podcasting or just content creation is.
So yeah, some of my favorite stuff about the content creation is I am I push myself, and I tend to be competitive. I think the older I get, I channel it like in a little bit more of a healthy direction, but I do like getting better at it, because that's kind of what I was leaning at before is, there's skills that you can develop doing it, right? So that's one thing. I do like trying to get better at what I'm doing. And so whether that's on the actual presentation side, or on the editing side, or what I'm doing when I'm putting things on Instagram or on YouTube, because all this stuff was new to me before this.
Same.
I didn't know how to I wasn't using like social media anymore when I decided to start doing this. So at 45, I had to figure out how to use Instagram, which is kind of funny, but yeah, I think I like the challenge of it. And then also that element of where I can connect with people that are like-minded in their passion for learning new things and sharing ideas. And then also, it's nice to work for myself. I'm not currently with the brewery, and I'm full-time on the content creation side, and I've had a fantastic experience in the brewing industry, and I want to stay very close to it. But there is something nice about working for me as opposed to somebody else, So one thing that's kind of been a little bit of a flip is my wife has been stay at home since we moved to Cincinnati. So she and I kind of flipped roles. Okay. So she's a nurse, and she works 3 days a week. So going full time on the content creation side has let me be a stay at home dad for the first time, which is a big adjustment, but it's been a huge, huge blessing as well. Sometimes it's just little things, and maybe it makes you sound like a slacker dad, but like I know all the things now. Like I know what my 4-year-old snacks on at what time.
There you go.
You know what I mean? And it's just the little stuff that, you're just generally not there for, right? So the little routine things. So yeah, she and I have 6 kids. 2 of them are out of the house, but we still have 4 in the house. So we want to appreciate what are probably the last young ones as we're kind of rolling into this next phase of life. So that's been one of those been some of the beautiful things about doing the content creation thing for me.
That's great, man. That's awesome. And I know, like, we talk about what we're talking about right now, like what what your favorite part about it or what you love about it. Like, what do you feel like some of the harder things are for you? Like, is it social media, or is it, booking guests, or what would that be for you?
Yeah. So I try to stay very up to date on what I can be learning to be effective in my posting for Instagram, YouTube, different things like that. So some of the biggest challenges have been, figuring those things out. Sometimes understanding that you can post what you think is a really good video that's hitting all of the parameters, post it at the right time. But the reality is if half of your audience is in an area where they have like the first beautiful day of spring and
Mhm.
everybody is outside and they're not looking at their phone, that video might not hit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that, I know that sounds like a kind of extreme example, but learning to just stay resilient and consistent. I post a large volume. So since going full time on this starting in January, I've essentially been pulling short content out of my long form content and then repurposing that for Instagram and YouTube. So I put 4 to 5 short videos a day on Instagram and on YouTube, and then usually a standard length video on YouTube, and then once a week a live stream that goes on. So there is a large volume that goes out there. And, for me, I'm experimenting with different approaches, right? I'm always somebody that maybe probably goes too hard and then needs to like dial back a little bit. But I think, figuring out the content creation side has been probably one of the biggest challenges. The good thing, and I think the thing that has kept me going with it, is I do see the long-term value proposition as being, somebody that creates a lot of pro side content, because again, there's not a ton of pro side video content out there. So yeah, staying patient, grinding, trying to always stay learning. If anybody's on the content creation side, there's a great podcast called the Instagram Stories.
Yeah.
And they talk all the time about, they report out, Instagram gives like tips and tricks every week or something from one of their high ups. And there's some valuable stuff in there. So I just try to be like a student of the stuff that's the tough stuff and try to keep getting better. So yeah.
That's great, man. I mean, honestly, I didn't like, because I know, like, I kind of feel the same way when it comes to certain things. You think, man, this is a really cool looking reel, and and then it just flounders.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
or sometimes, and I've even had things that I'm like, okay, these two things are like borderline identical. They're pulled out of the same brew day. The content is as engaging. It's the same length. It's the same pacing. And then one gets 1,500 views instantly and the next one gets 50. You know what I mean? And it's like, it kind of is what it is. You know what I mean? But I think it's better to keep like a bigger picture view at what you're doing. You're willfully growing something larger. Now, again, I'm talking about this from a business perspective, right? You know what I mean? So it depends on what level of interest you have within that space, but that's how I'm hacking at it.
No, that's awesome, man. And keep on going, man. I wanted to ask you, because I mean, anytime like I'm talking to someone that's outside of California, I love to ask like what the scenes out there, like the craft beer scenes out there, like for you, especially like in Cincinnati, what's that like?
Yeah, it's funny because when I moved here from Michigan, if I were to go downtown Cincinnati, it would end up being very different than the tap list that I put on at Cartridge, which was 35, 40 minutes outside the city. Now it's still, it's a plenty busy suburb. All right. But, you can go downtown and go to a place that has several IPAs on tap. Okay. And then if you came out by us, if I put several IPAs on tap, they would just cannibalize each other and they would just hang on the draft lines. What I could get away pouring where we were in Mason was, 1 to 2 IPAs, maybe standard, or a hazy.
Okay.
Hazy West Coast, maybe, and maybe an Imperial. But a lot of folks that were coming in with us, at Cartridge, there's a great, it's inside of a great restaurant as well. So they have a great food component. And we found that slowly I started rolling out some lagers. I had a Helles, and then I had an amber lager. And then I asked my boss, I'm like, can I try to do like an adjunct lager, like a rice lager, something that we would throw a lime on? And then next thing you know, that's the number one beer. And then it's, so the Rice lager is number one, and then it's all these other German inspired lagers filling out. And yeah, IPA fit in there as well a little bit. Fruit beer fit in there as well, but it was an easy drinking, customer base there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They wanted some straightforward stuff. And yeah, there was some appetite for bigger, stronger, crazier beers, but it wasn't the bread and butter of what we were doing there. People were coming there to drink multiple beers with a meal, and it was usually on the lager side. So for me, I love that, because as a brewer, those are the beers that I feel like they're real measuring sticks for me as a professional brewer, right?
100%.
Like, you want to have it. Sure, you want to have a great everything, but if it's those gently flavored beers that are the ones that are easiest to tell, where you're at with your process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I love the simplicity of those beers. And so we're able to do a lot of things like that. But, if you go downtown, there's all sorts of stuff. We have Urban Artifact downtown that does, really tart, essentially, maybe somebody would like if I said this, but almost like a smoothie style tart beer. So like a really acidic base beer blended back with a lot of fruit. And they do a lot of fruit processing by hand there. So they have some really cool stuff going on. So, we have a place like that. We have some larger distributing type places like Rheingeist and Mad Tree. But yeah, I would say downtown is a little more IPA heavy, but I do think, especially these days, I think there's a really nice undercurrent, which I think is kind of all over the place, but I do think there is a move more back to some of those traditional lager type styles, or at least some things that are inspired by that, right? So a more modern take on certain types of lagers. But yeah, that's kind of what I see. And with the deep German roots that Cincinnati has, it kind of makes sense, that you're always going to kind of have some sort of, lager baseline here.
No, I love that though. And one thing I always say, like on the show, is like, when I go to a brewery for the first time, a lot of times I'll try their Pilsner or their lager first, or a West Coast. But a lot of times it's Pilsner and lager, because I know if that's good, most of the other stuff's going to be good.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's just, you can't beat it. And even like I was going to ask you too, like, I mean, you're seeing the lagers there. You've seen some, like, it seems like you guys have a pretty good, like, a bunch of breweries that have maybe specialize in certain things.
Sure.
Like, yeah, like, I mean, and I love that, because then you can kind of go get your sours here, or get your IPAs, there, or lagers for that matter. And lagers being your favorite beer to brew during that time. And correct me if I'm wrong, but but during that time, like, were there any other styles that like you truly enjoy brewing, or is it just all styles?
Well, okay, so I almost feel bad when I give people this answer, because it almost sounds like a joyless answer. But for me, like, okay, so I do love my mom's side of the family is all Italian, Sicilian. And so like for me, like you loved people with food, right? And you love people with hospitality. And so that's something that's very, very core for me. So one of the things that I love about beer is I love the communal, hospitable nature of it. Yeah. I love having a fellow brewer or somebody that I know really loves their beer, and I love to share beer with them, right? Love like it's just something like it's how you care for people. You know 100%. What I mean? Like whether it's a dinner you make or a beer you brew, right? So for me, I even though I do have that real passion component, for me, I almost drink more as more of like an information from an informational for scientific standpoint. Like, I'm tasting it. I'm trying to understand it. I'm very, very big on balance, because I think one of the key elements in almost every beer, when you get that beer where you're halfway through it and you wish you were drinking something else, generally what's wrong is there's something out of whack between the amount of residual sweetness and the amount of bitterness in that beer. Okay. Typically, that's what it is. If the residual sweetness is too high, it's going to really lay on your palate, and those flavors are going to build and build and build. On the flip side, if that sweetness isn't at the right level, that beer can come across as watery or too bitter even, right? So that's what I love about it. So I'm always pulling apart beers that I'm drinking. It's always like me trying to figure them out. And I very much mirror what you say. I prefer to order the lightest thing on the menu when I go into a place. And then I like to taste around the draft list, right? And just to understand how different people, because I feel like on a certain level, every brewer has their voice, right? So
Of course.
if you taste across someone's lineup, you're going to be able to start understanding in some ways what the brewer prefers, like how he likes to build beers, right? So yeah, so that's what but from a Century standpoint, I love lagers. I love, the longer I've been in the game, the more I tend to prefer drier beers.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Early on, I was into stronger, sweeter beers. I still think there's a time and place for that stuff, but I love refreshing, balanced, clean beers. So yeah, again, that could be anything, but yeah, that's kind of my spiel on the whole thing.
Oh, that's great though, man. And even with obviously your background been brewing for so long, and even with the content creation now, and you're talking to brewers and stuff, what's the when you were brewing, brewing professionally, what was your approach when it came to recipe development or building, building new recipes, stuff like that?
Yeah. Well, I think that I tend to go more subtle than more aggressive. I tend to, because when you get into recipe development on the malt side, you're kind of playing with ratios. You're looking at a percentage of base malt, a percentage of character malt, whether that be caramel malt, roast malt, something like this. I typically like to, when I say I like to be conservative with that, I like to use as little caramel malt as I can, as little roast malt, some things like that, because what I like to do is I like to create beers that sometimes when people come in and they drink beers on the board that I've brewed and written the recipes for, people will say, okay, I can drink pretty much anything on the menu. It's just whatever my style preference is, right? So sometimes you can make an IPA that's really aggressive with the bitterness, and you might be able to get this percentage of the people that are willing to drink it. But I feel like if I get a really big, intense hop flavor and aroma in that beer and enough bitterness to keep it balanced, I can get this many people to drink it. And as somebody that's selling beer, that's what I want to be doing. It's not about hitting a middle road necessarily as far as intensity, but on some level, it is making it as approachable as possible for the widest range of people while still having it be true to that style, right?
100%.
So that's kind of my approach on the recipe side. When it comes to some things like IPA, I love pale, dry, bright, snappy West Coast style IPAs. I like the a little bit more modern West Coast approach where we're going kind of as pale as possible with it. So from across the bar, and especially if it's in some thin glassware or some narrow glassware, you're like, man, is that a light lager or no? Right? Like almost that visual, but then you get that big blast of hop aromatics out of the glass. I love that duality, to have it almost kind of look like one thing, and then bam, when you get near the glass, oh, this is an IPA, right? So I don't know. I like builds like that. And that's kind of my approach in general. I like to stay simple on the ingredients, and then if I'm trying to feature an ingredient, I try to feature an ingredient. When I'm trying to do something hop forward, I don't try to go with a bunch of nuance, the grain side. I want the grist to be pretty much as neutral as possible, so I can just feature, because that's my preference, right? I know some people can have like a maltier IPA, but that's not what I enjoy drinking. It's what I came up drinking like in the 90s, 2000s in the Midwest. There's plenty of those. It is it's no shade at those beers, but like there's kind of that classic Midwest, like Two Hearted kind of thing, like the little bit more golden IPA.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like them. I like them a little paler, a little snappier. So yeah.
Same here, man. Like anytime a place out here now has a West Coast Pils on the board, I'm like, that's the one.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you too, like, what are like, if going from Michigan even to Cincinnati, what was it like? Obviously, there was a challenge, obviously moving and then working for a new brewery. What was that like for you? And then also, what was like kind of the difference between the two? Like, obviously, I know we talked about a lot about lagers in Cincinnati. Was it similar in Michigan as well?
Yeah, I think, we're seeing some lagers pop up here and there, but I think it was kind of that gradual rollout, because I do think I think for a long time brewers have been saying, oh, it's going to be the year of the lager. And I do think it is finally turning into that a little bit, but
yeah,
it's been a little bit of a slow burn. So I was turning some lagers when I was brewing up there. But that shift from Michigan to Ohio is interesting because the Michigan brewing scene is, relatively well established, pretty old. We have some bigger, earlier breweries. Obviously with Bell's has been around for a long time, and for a long time it was obviously some of the western states, but Michigan was right in there as far as some long-standing breweries and also number of breweries. And they had a really well-developed Michigan Brewers Guild. And so they put on a really impressive conference, especially for a state conference, because, of course, it's not CBC, a larger, national conference or something like that. The industry had some legs to it, and a lot of the places were opened by homebrewers. So it was before business started saying, oh, we need to open a brewery. Let's, and we have business people moving into the space, as opposed to people that were more on the hobby side of it. And so it was interesting to come up in that, because so many of those places, people were local homebrewers, right? And then they ended up doing their thing. Moving to Cincinnati, even though it is an old beer city with a ton of history, the kind of craft beer boom as far as number of breweries happened a little bit later than it did in Michigan, or at least as far as the volume and different things like that. So, and also, by the time I was down here, some of the places that are opening, are more like, people are like, oh, this is a business opportunity. This is a space to get into, right? So it's a little bit different thing. But in all honesty, I haven't been super plugged in down here. I do think, one, we live out in the sticks. Okay. So that was kind of a decision we made when we moved here, to kind of create a buffer between work and home. That's kind of nice for me, you know what I mean? Because most everybody either like lived in Mason or like downtown. So that was like civilization to them. And I do not live in what they consider a civilized portion of the world. I live out in the country. So, but yeah, so as I mentioned, my wife and I have a big family, so I'm not out and about a bunch. But it is cool to be able to get out and see what folks are doing with some of the in-brewery content stuff that I'm making. But, in general, I would say it's got real Midwest craft beer vibes here. You know what I mean? Yeah, in my mind, it's similar from a beer style range from what you would see being made in Michigan. Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, the reason why I ask is anytime I go anywhere traveling or anything like that, whether it's for work or just get away for a weekend or something like that, the first thing I always plan, there has to be some breweries that I
Sure.
got to stop at. And if I get the opportunity to record with one of them, that's even better. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, I love doing that. Love having conversations, especially like this one. Like we've never met each other in person, but here we are, just able to shoot the shit, it's
Man.
what's
Isn't that
better
funny
than
how it clicks? It is funny. It is.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
Yeah. In podcasting too, like it just feels like, as long as people are genuine and they're good and they're not trying to I think sometimes guests, depending on if you haven't met them yet, they may some people think like, oh, what is this going to be like? Like, am I going to be like, roasted, or am I going to be like something like this? It's like, no, well, I just want to have a fun conversation with you,
Yeah.
What have been some, obviously, one of the things I was wanting to ask, I love to ask, especially when it comes to podcasting too, any fun, content stories, or I used to call it tales from the tap room, but
Sure,
or
sure.
even if your time brewing, and any fun stories.
Yeah, well, I have when I was at Cartridge, what I started doing was I got permission from my boss, obviously, but I figured like the upshot and at that point it was really a pub style thing. So we did a little bit of distribution, but we worked the hours we worked. I was salary, you know what I mean? So I did my work. When I was done, I would go home. If I had to stay late, I stayed late. And that was pretty established, So I had finally gotten permission from my boss. He finally signed off on, I just said, listen, I'm just going to have my phone, because I just record with my phone and a tripod, and I'm just going to talk to it while I work and explain what I'm doing. So one of the things that was funny, now that I look back at the time, it hurt my feelings, but it was one of the hurdles of, I was 45 when I started doing that. And I always say that recording yourself as a middle-aged man doing manual labor, there are areas of your body that you didn't know existed. Like there's this like hip area thing that it just looks like some brisket that's underneath my shirt or something. I didn't know that. I didn't know I had that, but apparently I do. And so you have to get used to seeing yourself do manual labor. But we have had situations where I was going to do this brew day video for a beer called Sabo that we had. They had all these military themed names or whatever. It was an old munitions factory that it was in.
Okay.
And we were getting ready to do this IPA brew day. We get into it. We get the beer in the mash. We mashed in. So we got a mash tun full. And then something like we completely lost our boiler or something like that.
Man.
So we were just toast. So boiler's out. They can't come until later in the day. So it's like, all right, so this mash, and maybe it was even the next day, whatever it was, that mash was toast. So we have had times where, you're trying to record something, and especially as you're trying to learn and figure out what you're doing, I always like my clips to be very much in succession, right?
Yeah.
So that was the first time that I'm recording something. It's like, well, this was all useless. You know what I mean? Because we're basically pulling the plug and going back on something else. But, another thing which is funny to me, I recorded myself for 2 months straight before what I was recording was decent enough to start using.
Wow.
And I was recording myself every day. And at that point, when I had started the channel, I had a buddy of mine that had done he does work in the video space. And so he was helping with my editing. And so I would just record, send him my stuff every day. And then I remember it was like 2 months in, and finally I sent him some stuff and he goes, "We can use this." And I'm like, oh,
there you go.
We can't use anything else from the last 2 months. And he goes, "No, man." And he said, "You just look like you want to die." You know what I mean? So, because there's an element of, just getting used to it,
Yeah.
I'm now you're aware of more keenly than ever the way you sound, the way you look,
100%.
the weird things about your face that you didn't necessarily notice until you had to edit your face over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so That's kind of that.
Oh man, and it's crazy too, because like I mean now, like, thankfully I don't really do like I'll shoot like a reel or stuff like that when I'm at a brewery. People have asked me if I would do more video stuff like this. I'm like, man, because it's just me. I was like, I don't have the time. Like,
Sure.
I wish I honestly could, but down the road maybe. But honestly, I just like for me for the audio part or like anything like that was for me where I was really self-conscious, like initially when I first started doing it by myself. And that was like, I was like, is anybody going to care? Like, or is anybody even going to
Sure.
like it? You know? So I'm sure maybe you went through something.
So were you
similar
worried
like
about
that.
how you sounded?
No, not really about how I
Okay.
sounded.
Because
just
I
like,
was going to say, when we got on, I'm like, oh, you have like a calm, smooth voice. I'm like, okay, this is like calm guy, smooth guy voice. And I feel like I'm all
you're
this.
great, man.
Whenever I edit audio, I always feel so ridiculous. So I use like Adobe Rush. It's like the easiest like one to interface with. But I've got a mic on me. I've got a mic on the other person, like the brewer from Rheingeist. He had the mic where it was supposed to be. I even put my mic further down because I know how loud I am. And dude, my audio spikes are like all the way to the top all the time. And like normal human beings are like up to the middle. So apparently I'm a shouter or whatever. So hopefully I'm not blasting your ears out.
No, not at all. And I have the volume turned up like 3/4 of the way. You're totally fine.
All right. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, no, I think just kind of for me, it was like just worrying about, because I mean, I wasn't ever in the industry. I was just a guy that loved craft beer and doing things doing a show with my brother and them before, and then they couldn't do it anymore. So having to rebrand. I didn't know shit about anything about when it came to editing. Didn't know anything about just trying to get GarageBand to work was a pain for me. But eventually, we get it. And like, that's why anytime somebody asks me nowadays, which is leading into the question I want to ask you, like anytime somebody needs advice from me, or like they're like, hey, I want to start a show, like what equipment do you use, or how do you do your thing, or how do you distribute? I always just like, send me a message, like, and we'll get it all figured out. And like if you were going to give advice to somebody like that wanted to get into like podcasting, whether it's about craft beer or anything, what advice would you give them?
Well, what got me started on the whole thing was I was doing some research on something, and I was watching some shorts like on LinkedIn because it was business type stuff. And I saw a Gary V short, and some of his stuff, I'm not like craziest about all of his stuff or whatever, but he had one where he was just talking about being, in the professional space. He said, if there's something that you are passionate about and you are willing to explain it to somebody else, he said, you should be making content. And so I do think that's one big key. So for me, I knew I had some of the requisite skill sets. Now, granted, they needed to be developed, but I know that, I had taught before and that I enjoyed the subject matter, whatnot, things like that. But I think you have to actually be passionate about what you're doing and then set up like what your goals are with it. If it's fun, it's fun, and that's great. If fun to you is you make one podcast a month, you make a podcast every 2 weeks, you make one quarterly, whatever it is, kind of set up what sounds like fun to you and start doing it. Something that has worked really well for me, I have probably 1,300 videos on YouTube right now. I started in 2022. And overwhelmingly, the comment section is very, very positive. Generally, folks get negative. And one of the reasons that I feel as if the comment section has been very positive for me is it does have a little bit to do with, first of all, I'm trying to help people learn stuff. You also mentioned before that our industry is generally full of nice folks. So that helps too.
Oh yeah.
But also, I think there can be this thing that we wrestle with when we're trying to teach or share information. I used to labor under the assumption that when I was teaching history, I was responsible for knowing everything. And that was me as a young man. It was my first job. And even saying it out loud, it sounds stupid. It's human history, right?
Yeah.
But I was always worried somebody was going to ask a question I didn't know the answer to. And then eventually I found the power in being able to confidently say, I don't know that, but you know what? Let's dig in and try to find something out about it, right? That freedom of that. And I think from a content creator standpoint, if you are trying to like share things with or educate, I think it's really important to convey that you are on the path as well. You're sharing what you know and you are growing as well, right? So
100%.
it's never, it's never this concept of me as the guru on the mountaintop. This is me as a brewer trying to get better every day. And this is what I'm doing right now based on this podcast, this research, what have you, right? So I think that's a big key when people do get into that content creation space. Be excited and passionate about it. And then try to share through that lens. You don't have to be the expert. Share what you are going through. Mm-hmm. There's always somebody that is less experienced than you.
Yeah.
Just because you're not the number one source of information on something, that's fine. Everybody has their own personality and you connect with people in a different way. For instance, and this is one of those things, when the picture I use for myself, I'm in this black and white flannel, I have a silly smile on, and it's like the elementary school backdrop, like the photo day cloud backdrop. Yeah. And we were at my son's basketball game, and they had, the team picture behind that thing. And so at halftime, nobody was using it. So I stepped into it and I took a picture of myself. And that picture made me laugh so hard, primarily because I'm an idiot. Okay. So
I'm thinking about it. It's making me laugh. So there you go.
Well, but then I told my wife when I was getting ready to do the YouTube thing, I'm like, I need like a logo or something. And I said, I think it would be really funny if I used this ridiculous picture on my face. And she goes, if you think it's funny, you should do it.
Yeah.
And I kind of wrestled with it. And because I'm certain that there are some brewers out there that have seen my content and seen that silly smiley face that I'm making, and they say, that guy's a clown, and I'm not going to watch his video. But the reality is those people probably wouldn't like me anyway. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to flip the switch on something like that, you're probably not going to click with me anyways. It's the people that saw that and either looked past it or thought it was funny themselves, right? Yeah. So so being yourself, I think is another big thing. I think people attach to authenticity.
100%.
And so, yeah, it's not time to become somebody else or whatever. Just do your thing and be excited about it. Yeah.
100%, man. I agree with you. And one thing I feel like too, it's just like, I would say is like, make sure you're learning from like your mistakes, or just like continuing to try to learn, right? Like, I think when I first, like, not to say that I did this, but when I first started, like, it did really teach me how to listen and not react, because you kind of have to, like, I don't ever want to be the guy that's cutting somebody off in the middle of a conversation while they're talking. That's just rude. Like, I want you to be able to express how you're talking, like, everything you want to say. Like, if I ask you a question, I shouldn't be jumping in on your question while you're trying to explain yourself, right? So I feel like that's one of the
tough
things
one
really
for
helpful.
me.
Oh, okay.
That's a really, and that's something that when I was talking about things that I've had to try to get better with, because especially when I first started podcasting, I only did the live stream.
Yeah.
And so it's me for 2 hours with the chat.
Yeah.
Right. And so when it's you for 2 hours with the chat, you're the only person talking, right?
Understandable.
And so you get used to that. And especially being a teacher, yeah, I mean, there's some back and forth to class, but still you're doing a lot of direct instruction, right? So that's very native to me. And especially with being as like expressive and everything as I am, that's been a really big thing where I'm trying to learn how to become a facilitator of conversation rather than a driver of conversation, because it's a different skill set, right? And then also knowing like how, okay, this question is kind of winding down. I need to weave this into the next question. And then that's when I'm looking at my note sheet. And then that's when I can potentially not hear them say something so yeah, it's a skill. You're absolutely right. Like developing that is a very, very real thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, and just guy, like you mentioned, like doing that, guiding the conversation. Like I'll take a quick glance, but I'm still here, like listening to what you're saying. Like I'll take a quick glance over. All right, this is what I want to bring up next. Or sometimes it just happens organically, and those are the best times. Like even today, like I rarely had to look at it. Like I looked a couple of times, but for the most part, like when you were talking about the different styles, I was like, oh, I'll just lead right into that because we're already talking about the lagers and stuff like that. So
for sure.
Yeah, to me, like and it can be really gratifying too. I mean, like in a sense where I'll, just be at it's happened a couple of times where I've just been at a random brewery and someone walked up and say, hey, just want to let you know because of your show, I started homebrewing or I started doing this. And it's like, that's like the part. I mean, if you can, like the world's full of like negativity and kind of, I'm just going to say shitty people, but, but if you can like just bring a little bit of, happiness or just be good, good to one another, it's always, it's a lot easier to be shitty than it is to be good. So.
Absolutely.
Nope.
Absolutely.
I don't want to take too much of your time. I just had a couple more things I wanted to ask you.
No, you're good, man. We're good on time. Whatever you got for me, I'll answer.
Gotcha. Another thing is, so one thing I always love to ask anybody I have on the show is desert island beers.
Okay.
And I know I sent you the talking points. I didn't elaborate too much on it, but it would be like you can pick one craft and one domestic, but it's like if you can't think of a specific craft like brewery, you can also just do a style.
I don't know. There's part of me that wants to go like, I almost feel like pulled like in a nostalgic direction.
Okay.
Desert island beer for me, I would go ahead and shout out. So the craft side would probably be the Pilsner that I had at Austin Beer Garden in Austin, Texas. Some killer. Their Helles there. It was all beautiful. They had like Helles and a handful of Pilsners.
Love it.
And maybe I forget what else, but it wasn't much else. It was very, very cool. But really there, I mean, we were there in May, not of this year, but a couple of years ago, and it was already close to 100 degrees. So you need like crisp beer. So for me, my craft beer would be either that Austin Beer Garden, Helles, or Pilsner.
Okay.
And then I think just from a nostalgia standpoint, kind of a mass produced might be Coors Banquet. Yeah, just kind of connecting it back. I could go way back. I have a feeling that Coors Banquet is probably better than it was Schaefer Light, what I drank in college in Southeast Ohio, which was, now granted, it was 25 years ago, but also it was that cheap. I do think it was $3.99 for a 6-pack.
Okay.
So it was the cheapest thing. But so yeah, keeping it somewhat decent on the nostalgia side, I would go Coors Banquet. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Banquet was my answer for domestic for the longest time. But then I had a hams after that. Cause I mean, I love hams, but I hadn't had one in a while. I was like, yeah, it's back to hams.
Yeah. Hams is in that spot, man. There's a lot of people on my side of the industry that rock the hams for sure.
Yeah, it's just tough to find out here, bro. Like I don't like there's a Total Wine that's not far away from me, and every once in a while they'll have a 4-pack, like a couple of 4-packs.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, snagging those.
Let's get it.
But it's just it's hard to find out here. Another question I would love to ask, this might be a 2-parter because favorite food to pair with a beer, and then also best burger. I mean, unless you're not a burger guy, but I mean, best burger in Cincinnati.
Okay, so me, and this is really, and maybe it's just too basic or baseline, but I think pizza and beer are great. Pizza and beer, like crisp. I do like to go lager on that front, or even like some of like the newer school, like Italian Pils type builds, anything like that. And then best burger. You know what? I'm probably I'll use this as a shout out. There's a local guy who does it. He's called Mullet Review.
Okay.
And he's a mailman. Okay. But
nice.
he's like this dude, like in his 20s or 30s, and he has this massive mullet, like this
Wow.
massive blonde mullet. And he goes around and he reviews local Cincinnati restaurants. And
Okay.
and he's blonde. He has this huge blonde mullet. And his tagline is always like hot blonde reviews Ponderosa or whatever. Okay. So
Love it.
you actually need to check him out because
have
I
to.
can't give you too much good information on that. I've got a handful of like food allergies that keep me eating pretty regularly at home because it's the safest way. But there's a shout out for mullet review. So if you want your deep dive on Cincinnati, I don't know how you feel about Cincinnati chili. Have you ever been exposed? Skyline?
I've heard of Skyline chili. I've never had it myself though.
Listen, man, I don't know. It's not, it's not for me.
Okay.
First of all, they put it on pasta.
Yeah, I've seen it with like the mountain of cheese, right?
With the mountain of cheese, sometimes there's beans in there, and then they'll say things like you can order dishes there that would make a pure heart blush, man. You can go there and get a 3-way wet. Now I don't even know what that means, and I refuse to order it, and I refuse to find out. Okay, I'm not going to order that,
but I'm not
going to order that in front of my kids. So they don't need to know my preferences. So that's it's too much. But I've only had it once, and I had just a bowl of it, and then all the local people yelled at me and told me I did it wrong. So I've just sworn off of it.
Yeah, so that's what I heard. If you don't order it the right way, that they get pretty upset.
Yeah. That's the other thing. So you're going to order something potentially gross, and you might order it the wrong way and get yelled at. Win-win.
Yeah.
100%. Who knew I was going to have my Cincinnati chili hot takes on this thing? Who knew?
There you go. Yeah. But that's the best part, right? We don't know where the conversation is going to take us. Last thing, this is something that I actually got from Daniel Drennan from Beer Paper out here. He told me, he's like, always at the end of any interview, always close with this question now. I was like, okay. And he said, and he asked me this when I was sitting next to him. He said, describe yourself in one word. Or if you can only describe yourself in one word, what would that word be? And I purposely left that question off, but to kind of,
I'm going to smush, and I'm going to say a lot. Or intense or a lot. And what I mean by that is I think that it can be both a blessing and a curse. I'm one of those people that I worked with a guy, Josh, and this woman, Maggie, when I was at Cartridge, and we worked together. We worked hard. They wanted to grow. I wanted to grow. They wanted to be mentored. I enjoyed mentoring. It was awesome. And they're my people, and I love them, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know, like, I love people a lot and intensely, and that has upsides and downsides, you know what I mean? Because I can get my feelings hurt, and then it's the same thing like in the workplace. I don't do anything halfway, right? So like when I started homebrewing, I was listening to hours and hours of content at a time. Like it was crazy and like a little obsessive, but like I've had to learn to like calibrate those things a little bit. And usually people don't see it on the outside, right? Like how I can be a lot, because for me, like when my wife is like the most like steady, consistent, emotional person on earth.
There you go.
And she always says, she's like, I don't think I've ever been as happy as you have. But I know I've never been as sad as you have. You know what I mean? Like I hit both ends of the spectrum. Right. And so it's something that I've had to learn to like become patient with and whatnot. But I do think that's a good way to describe me.
Nothing wrong with it, brother. That's what makes you you. So.
For sure. I got a question for you. Why does it say Jonathan, a.k.a. Mike? So what's your name?
So my real name is Jonathan. On the show, I go by Mike. It's kind of a story. So when I was younger, I was around 25. I loved wrestling, wanted to go to wrestling school. So I didn't want to go like to be a pro wrestler. I just wanted to go to see what it was like. So I went, And they're like, you need a gimmick. I was like, okay, I'll be John Michaels.
Yeah.
Because I loved Shawn Michaels so much. He was my favorite wrestler.
Yeah.
And after I quit doing that after a few weeks, 'cause I just wanted to know what it was like. I didn't want to go there for anything like that. But my brother just started calling me Michaels. And then my other buddy started calling me that. And then when we started the other show, Taps and Tailgates, my brother's like, the first episode I was over on was like episode 4. And he's like, I'm going to bring on my brother Mike. I was like, okay. And it just stuck ever since. So
I like it.
Even people in the industry, it's funny, like I have family members that, outside of my brother, and even all my buddies call me Mike. So it's like weird. But then like other family calls me John, and then other people are like, who the fuck's Jonathan?
Well, my son, my son's name is Michael. Okay. I call him Michael. He goes by Mike. Then he goes off to college, and we like go out there and we meet his friends, and everybody's calling him Carl. And I'm like, okay, that's not his middle name. Like in no way, shape, or form is his name Carl. And well, what it is with the shape of glasses that he had at the time, he looked like from the movie Up. Old man, the young picture of the old man. That guy's name is Carl, apparently. Yeah. He looked like the young version of that guy. And so the professors were calling him Carl.
Okay.
And so he's engaged now, and his fiance was like, all right, listen, I actually have to start. I can't call you Carl when we get married. So I need to I can't say, Carl, will you, as you get ready to do the vows. So my son has had kind of that similar thing develop, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you a funny story. I don't think I've ever told this on the show, but it was when I was a kid. So growing up, I had my uncle who I was really close to. His name was Ray. And then my cousin that I was like the closest, he was like an older brother to me. His real name was Jammin, but his middle name is Ray. So I was in kindergarten and I was like, man, like Ray's such a cool name. I want my name to be Ray. So I told my kindergarten teacher that my mom was in the process of changing my name to Ray.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So my mom goes to back to school night. and the teacher's like, well, here's little Ray's desk and here's his cubby and stuff like that. My mom's like, who the fuck is Ray?
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Yeah. I wanted to be, when I was a kid, I was reading some comic book and it was like the kid version of the Fantastic Four or something.
Okay.
And one of the kids, like the leader boy, his name was Alex. And so I wanted to change my name to Alex. So they like reminding me of that. And for some reason that still stings when they bring it up. I don't know why. But yeah. So the Alex thing, and then For me, my mom, my middle name is Michael. And so I don't even notice it, but she almost exclusively just calls me Michael.
Okay.
And then for just about everyone else, I'm a last name guy. So for most of my friends, and also there was other Adams in our friend group. And so I've just been Mills forever. I was Mills in high school. I'm Mills now for a lot of people. So yeah.
Yeah. That was the same thing for me. Like I wouldn't call people by their last name, but they would always call me by my last name.
Yeah.
They would call me Grandpa. So yeah. Every time. But man, this has been fun. What a way to end it.
Yeah, dude, this is great. This is great.
It was so fun. And can you plug your stuff, like your Instagram, your YouTube, do all that? Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. You can check me out at Adam Makes Beer on YouTube. Jump into the playlist when you go on there because they have full brew days. There's tutorials. There's educational stuff. There's a wide range of things. There's a lot of technical podcast discussion stuff as well. But if you're interested in seeing some hands-on stuff, that's a good place to go. And then also a lot of my stuff drops on Instagram as well. And that's just Adam Makes Beer. Give me a follow over there. And yeah, that's where I'm doing my thing. My podcast pops up on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and whatever other ones happen to package up with that. So yeah.
Awesome. Do you have a specific date that you drop?
Pretty much just whenever I get them. I do have a podcast that drops every week.
Okay.
So it kind of depends on when they get scheduled, but there's a good volume of content going up on both YouTube and Instagram. So
Awesome.
check me out there. If you are somebody that has, craft beer brewing questions, the best thing to do is to shoot me a message on Instagram. And I might not respond right away. What I tend to do for an organizational thing is when I'm getting ready to do my Q&A, that's when I dig into my DMs. So it's just a time savings thing for me. So if I don't hit you up right away, just be patient and we'll get back around to it. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you again. We can stick around and chit chat for another minute, but thanks so much for being on. And everybody, like I said, everybody go follow Adam Makes Beer on Instagram and YouTube and all that great stuff. I always love to end it with, for everybody, like stay local, support local, drink local, and find your beer.
Love it. Love it.
Cheers,
Thanks for having me on, man. Cheers.
Cheers, bro. Thank you.
All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I said, I had a great time talking to Adam, and just a great dude. And hearing his story, man, is like, not a lot of people are willing to just, to take a risk or, pack their bags and go from Michigan to Ohio and, just kind of betting on themselves. So takes a lot of guts to do that. So kudos, man. Let's see, what do we got? So next week's episode is the Arizona brew hopping, which I'm stoked about. Such a good dude, Jonathan. And then the week after that is Masa's episode. And then I have, let's see, what else? I actually recorded yesterday at Paperback. Man, that was such a cool place. Like, such a cool facility. Man, it was just awesome. Yeah, like, it was, I couldn't get over, like, how much I loved that brewery. The beer is obviously fantastic. But yeah, there was just so much. Like, it was just really cool. I was just super stoked about it. But yeah, so next week, that'll be, next week, Arizona brew hopping, then Masa, and then I believe it's Erica, and then I think it'll be Tim from Browning for Breweries. Awesome dude. Honestly, really great dude. We recorded the other day, all the way from the UK. I recorded on my lunch break. But man, such a great dude. And I'm super stoked for you guys to hear that one. And then it'll be Paperback. So we're loading up on the episodes, and I might be recording one this week, actually. I got to double check with Adrian and Augie from Brujeria, but I will be doing that. And then I think let's see. Yeah, I really don't think I have anything else until after I may record in Palm Springs. I'll keep you posted. All right, I'm going to shut up now because I got a bunch of shit I got to do. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoy your Sunday. Have a great time with your mother. I was going to make a bad joke there, but I'm not going to. Just be better, Mike. All right. Well, hope you guys, like I said, have a great Sunday. Have a great Mother's Day. Enjoy your food. I'm going to be making smash burger tacos and then also smash chorizo tacos. I won't be able to make them like my boy El Chilote, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try to make some good ones. All right, guys. So I hope you guys enjoy your Mother's Day. Get some beer. Have a good time. And yeah, support local, drink local, and find your beer. Cheers.